what Google and YouTube are doing is that they are deliberately destroying their platforms in order to achieve their political agenda. This is known to me and a lot of other people in the company because in 2016, the CEO of YouTube, Susan Wachowski, stated that she wanted to quadruple the number of watch time hours within 1 year by the end of 2017. And once they sort of changed their trajectory to being more of a closed platform, being a publisher, that sort of key result of 4x the number of watch hours was silently put away because they knew they would not be able to hit this number, while censoring the internet because users are getting upset and they're going to other platforms.
Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report. Hey, before we begin this interview with a really courageous patriot and whistleblower from Google, I just want to let you know that this video is brought to you in part by our sponsor, Virtual Shield. Over just the last 30 days, Capital One, the Central Bank of Europe, and the great state of Texas have all been hacked in major data breaches. So who's next? Look, one of the best things you can do to help protect yourself online is invest in a VPN, a virtual private network. VPN allows you to create a secure connection to another network over the internet. VPNs like Virtual Shield can be used to shield your browsing activity from the prying eyes of Big Brother, whether you're on a public Wi-Fi connection at a coffee shop, in a foreign country, or at home. You can go to virtualshield.com, download the free 30-day trial, and install it. Here, let me show you how easy this is. I just go up to this little icon, the shield up there in the upper right-hand corner. I click it, and then I connect to Virtual Shield. And now you can see that my IP address says that it's coming from Chicago, Illinois. I don't live anywhere near Illinois. So that's how a VPN works. This month, Virtual Shield is offering their anniversary special of 30% off all VPN plans and all premium add-ons, including Protection Plus, Residential Access, and VIP performance plans for as low as a cup of coffee. Sign up for your free 30-day trial to Virtual Shield VPN and see what the hype's about. You have nothing to lose and your privacy to keep. I'll leave the link below this video. Okay, guys, thank you so very much for tuning in. This is a really important interview for posterity's sake, for the sake of history. When it comes to liberty and it comes to truth, what we need are truth tellers and whistleblowers. And boy, do we have one in the form of Zach Vorhies. What a great guy. He's taken the last hour off the record here to help me understand a couple of things. We just had a great conversation, and boy, do I like this guy. This is a guy you want to be friends with. Zach Vorhies, welcome.
Hi, good to be here.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. And what astounded me about your story as we got to know each other is you've been following many of us in the alt media for a very long time. So a lot of us look at Google as this monolithic, tyrannical corporation where everybody's a liberal leftist. And that's not the full truth, is it?
There's good guys on the inside that see everything that's happening, and a lot of us don't like what's going on with the company.
I want to do something for Zach right now, guys. You got to understand, he put everything on the line and he lost his job for it. And he's not yet reemployed. Zach had been with Google. Zach, what is it, 7 years?
8.5.
8 years. Can you imagine, guys, working for one of the biggest corporations, one of the most esteemed corporations in Silicon Valley, essentially? Now, of course, public opinion is turning against Google now, but for the longest time, everybody wanted to work for Google. And 8.5 years invested in working for a company like that. He puts it all on the line and loses his job for spilling the beans and telling the truth about some very nefarious activities and algorithms and other things going on at Google. So I want to do this for Zach right now. He's got a website where he sells these incredible cycling gloves. Zach, you can tell us about those in a second. It's zackees.com, ZACKEES.com. I didn't know about this. I just found out. I'm glad we had that hour to talk and get to know each other before we hit record, Zach. So tell people about these gloves. They're $74.95. They have turn signals built into them.
Yeah, that's right. They've got a turn signal built into the back of the glove. And so when you stick your hand out to, signal a turn, there's these two contact plates between the index finger and thumb. And when you push your fingers together, the lights come on and signal your turning intentions.
Well, I just wanted to shout it out there because you and I have no relationship in terms of you selling these gloves. I just want to support you. I think people, like for instance, Greg Coppola, other people at Google who have gone and blown the whistle deserve to be supported. And in the case of Greg Coppola, I think he set up a GoFundMe that has far exceeded his goal, so people are supporting him. The point is we can support whistleblowers. Whistleblowers don't have to lose it all. And in fact, I think they should be rewarded for telling the truth.
Right, and there's only downside when you come and blow the whistle. It's disemployment and the threat of lawfare.
Well, they came after you, didn't they? They even pulled some shenanigans with this wellness check, which could have been very, very, a lot of these trigger-happy cops, this wellness check, there's video of you walking out on the street with your hands up in the air because Google cared so much about you, Zach, that they called the police to do a wellness check. As essentially, I think they were trying to build the case that you were mentally unstable. After being there for 8.5 years and blowing the whistle on their criminality, they do a wellness check on you to, I think, try to build the case that you're not mentally stable.
That's right. I believe that they were preparing lawfare, which is warfare via the law. And the reason why I believe this is because a previous whistleblower by the name of Kevin Cernicki had his finances and his life destroyed by Google. He blew the whistle quietly. And as a result, HR ambushed him, got his laptop, and then the investigators for the company saw all the data that he had and then sued him and tried to press criminal charges saying that he hacked into their systems and didn't get the information legitimately. And he's had to fight them for a year to try and defend his name. And he spent over $100,000 of his own money that he had saved up. It's just gone in lawyer fees. And there's really no end in sight. And so Google decided that they were going to start the same process with me. And, when they decided to start this, I had already resigned from the company. And so they started this out by sending me a letter from a law firm asking what data I had retained, who I had sent the data to, and demanding that they get access to my laptop and my personal data so that they could go through and delete all the information that I had retained from the company. What I realized is that because I had evidence of criminal behavior and sedition, to allow Google to delete this information would be equivalent to conspiring or colluding in a cover-up. And I didn't want to partake in a cover-up. And so what I did instead is I took the laptop that they owned, and I took the data that I had retained, and I printed out 950 pages detailing their censorship system and their discrimination, and I mailed it, all 950 pages, with the laptop to the Department of Justice Antitrust Division under Attorney General William Barr.
And then at some point, you reached out to Project Veritas, a shout out to Project Veritas and James O'Keefe, where other whistleblowers, Greg Coppola being one of them, had leaked documents highlighting machine learning fairness and Google's practices to make search results, quote, more fair and equitable. You and I both know that the opposite is true. They're trying to prop up what they call more authoritative sources. Friends, I would remind you that authoritative equates to authoritarian. And now we have Susan Wojcicki's new letter to creators about an open platform. Let me quote her. She says, quote, "I believe preserving an open platform is more important than ever," said YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki in an open letter to YouTube creators. "Without an open system, diverse and authentic voices have trouble breaking through," end quote. What a joke. As somebody whose YouTube channel has been really decimated in 2019 versus 2018, and the statistics speak for themselves, let's just talk a little bit about Google and YouTube. YouTube, a lot of people don't know this, is the second largest search engine in the world, the second largest website, and therefore the second largest search engine in the world behind only Google. And they control the whole platform. They control the world's largest public square. Susan Wojcicki in this open letter is making the case that, oh, no, not only is it an open platform, preserving it as an open platform is more important than ever. In my view, Zach, that's because she's a little concerned about Section 230 in the DOJ antitrust investigation.
That's right. They still want to carry on the facade that they are a platform and not a publisher that is censoring the information on their system.
Let me ask you this just real quick. Do you think if it wasn't for Project Veritas, if they didn't exist, if James O'Keefe hadn't started that, you may not have blown the whistle because you wouldn't have had the right avenue?
Right. Yes, I do. If it weren't for Project Veritas, I would not have been able to blow the whistle. And the reason is because of the incredible integrity of the founder of Project Veritas, which is James O'Keefe. And the reason why Project Veritas is the way that it is because James O'Keefe is the way that he is. And so it's the only organization which had the integrity to be able to take this story, do it justice, get the undercover sting operation that got Jen Janai admitting to Google's intentions for election interference, and then being able to release that footage with the video that I did with him and the few documents that were released the first time. It was because of that integrity and that dedication to finding out the truth that this story became what it was. And without Project Veritas, I don't think that I would have been able to have another outlet. Like, seriously, the New York Times just would have stabbed me in the back. The Washington Post would have turned me in, et cetera, et cetera. They have no, alliance with the truth. They are propaganda outlets at this point. And Project Veritas is, the truth that stands up against the mountain of lies.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, shout out to James O'Keefe and Project Veritas. Absolutely. Well, I'm glad I asked that question. I'm glad to get your answer because that guy is helping change the world, and so are you, whistleblowers like you. Let me ask you if you agree. One of the most important lawsuits in the world right now, in my view, is the PragerU lawsuit against YouTube and Google, YouTube specifically. Free speech, if we don't have it, we're doomed as a nation and we're doomed as a people eventually. And I don't think Google cherishes free speech at all. I know that YouTube doesn't. To me, PragerU, this lawsuit, is one of the most important in our country right now.
Yeah, that's right. They're challenging Google using they're challenging Google and how they're classifying themselves as a platform versus a publisher on Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. A publisher's legal term, which allows someone to censor the content on their system. Google and the other social media giants have classified themselves as a platform. And as a platform, they are immune from being sued, given that they allow an open and free internet system that can be accessed by the internet. And so by claiming that they're a platform, but then acting as a publisher, Google has opened themselves up to a violation of their agreement under the law.
And what do you think their responsibility is to their quote-unquote YouTube partners under the law? We have that YouTubers union lawsuit. IG Metall, I believe, is the name of the union in Germany that sent an open letter threatening a lawsuit and what they call, quote unquote, a shitstorm if YouTube doesn't comply with their demands, which are demands for transparency, openness, and no more of this unfair, unlevel playing field. What do you think is YouTube's responsibility to its partners? I'm a YouTube partner. That used to mean something. Now it doesn't seem to mean a damn thing. I used to have somebody I could contact specifically at YouTube. Her name was Hadass. I got her name and her contact, and we talked many times after I had 100,000 subscribers. Now she won't return my emails, and I'm told she went on leave. So I have nobody to talk to now. It seems that some partners are treated way better than others.
That's right. When Google IPO'd and their stock became public, they had a set of mission statements that they promised to the American people and to their investors. And the first one was, don't be evil. And the second one was to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Now, when they betray that mission statement of an open internet, they're not just betraying their oath to the American people. They're betraying their oath to their investors, of which they owe a fiduciary responsibility to maximize their shareholder value. Now, what Google and YouTube are doing is that they are deliberately destroying their platforms in order to achieve their political agenda. And this is known to me and a lot of other people in the company because in 2016, the CEO of YouTube, Susan Wachowski, stated that she wanted to quadruple the number of watch time hours within 1 year. That would be by the end of 2017. And once they sort of changed their trajectory to being more of a closed platform, being a publisher, that sort of key result of 4x the number of watch hours was silently put away because they knew they would not be able to hit this number, while censoring the internet, because users are getting upset and they're going to other platforms. They're literally destroying their own platform in order to achieve their political goals. And no matter what the investors say, they don't have a vote. And the reason why they don't have a vote is because Google had a special stock structure when they became public, such that there was a protected class of stockholders that had a 10-to-1 voting ratio over all other stockholders. And the group that had this were the insiders. And so there's this cabal of insiders that have a disproportionate amount of control over the company, even though they don't have a disproportionate control of the stock. And so what we have right now is we have a deliberate lying by Google to the people, and now they're committing essentially stockholder fraud. And this needs to be, talked about, and the stockholders themselves need to bring Google to heel. And I believe that hopefully they can do a lawsuit to force Google to answer for why they're destroying stockholder value.
That is such an interesting insight. I've felt the same way about them destroying their platform for their political views to be successful. They don't care. They'll do anything to prevent Donald Trump from being reelected in 2020. Jen Janai, in that famous Project Veritas video, said just that. It is their duty to prevent another Trump situation in 2020. So let me ask you this. I wrote this question down last night. I hope it makes sense. Let me just read it. Can you explain to people the sheer size and power of Google? Meaning that if Google no longer provides people with the valuable data that they want when they use Google as a search engine, people can and are starting to use other search engines like DuckDuckGo, and maybe ultimately Google will go the way of MySpace or America Online. But as it pertains to DuckDuckGo, I think they rely on Google for search results.
Yeah, there's a rumor that I heard that DuckDuckGo might have already been purchased by Google, but I'm not really sure. I heard that rumor and I haven't validated it yet. But there's a lot of other search engines that people are turning to. Start Page is the one that I use, but I found that Microsoft's Bing and Yahoo search is actually pretty good at this point of time. Obviously, they didn't used to be, but the search engine is now a lot better than what it was. And additionally, Google search has gotten so bad that now it actually makes sense to use another search engine as your primary search engine and use Google as sort of a fallback or a plan B.
Yeah. Well, I completely agree. The problem with Google is that it's ubiquitous with search, just as Kleenex is ubiquitous with tissue. I mean, it's part of the lexicon. It's part of the language. Google has somehow, in such a short time, managed to make itself the ultimate brand in search. And then they bought up YouTube, which is the smartest thing they've ever done, now the second largest website on earth, and they own them both. Now, thanks to you and the documents you released, and I'm going to give a call out to our friend Amazing Polly, who did a video about this. Here's a document titled Algorithmic Discrimination from an Environmental Psychology Perspective, Stress-Inducing Differential Treatment. When it comes to treating people unequally, it is very much stress-inducing. It takes the wind out of your sails. It makes you feel less relevant. It makes you feel like you're not doing quality work. And it really is psychological warfare. And I think it is being implemented on many, many, many of us on YouTube and in the space. And via Google, my website, SGT Report. So they're attacking us all. They're attacking truth via their algorithms. And I wanted to ask you about that document, Algorithm Discrimination, Stress-Inducing Differential Treatment.
Right. So this was a paper that was sponsored by Google, by Lawrence Yu, the director of privacy, and Sunny Consolvo, the security and privacy person. And what they stated in here are some really disturbing revelations. One of them, in terms of what causes people to make more purchases. And in this paper, they describe that one of the results of discrimination if they can simulate crowding, then people will respond by doubling their purchases online through Google Ads. The paper itself talks a lot about algorithmic discrimination and what it means and what the negative effects are. And let me just quote some of the probable effects of algorithmic discrimination from the paper itself. Negative effect can make people's thinking more narrow and concrete. So people who perceive they are experiencing algorithmic discrimination may think more narrowly, which could influence their purchasing behaviors in response to advertisements or other stimuli. More restricted thinking is likely to increase the sales of more practical options at the expense of those that serve a higher order needs, such as signaling status. And also, it says that stress has been linked to degraded mood and interactions with others, such as reduced altruism and increased aggression and competitiveness. Similarly, when people are threatened, they are more likely to feel uncomfortable, hostile, aggressive, and angry. As a result, people who experience algorithmic discrimination may be more likely to display negative online behaviors such as aggression or hostility. So, doesn't that sound exactly like what's going on right now? Like with the discrimination against the conservatives, and they're trying to stir up anger, especially given all of the racism that's now being pushed online by, fake news organizations like the New York Times. This is causing, discrimination in the real world and also discrimination by the algorithms, because tech giants like Twitter protect those that speak, in terms of white racism. Like there's a movie that was debuting in San Francisco called Why Don't We Murder More White People? And I asked all of my followers to click, and report the abuse or report targeted harassment of this video. And despite the hundreds of people following this and reporting this video, it still hasn't been taken down. And things like this are the epitome of online discrimination and algorithmic discrimination, because even though we have clear-cut anti-white racism online, we can't take it down, and this causes a bunch of psychological stress.
Yeah.
And so I want to go on to the coping mechanisms that they talk about in here, and that when users experience these algorithmic discrimination, they try to respond by reasserting control. And so what they're saying here is, and I quote, the proposed remediation for algorithmic discrimination includes provide external reporting mechanisms, which could dampen the stressful effects of algorithmic discrimination. Reporting channels are particularly likely to have beneficial effects for stress reduction if they allow people to reach powerful organizations. So, for example, the reported tweet that doesn't actually do anything is an example of allowing people to have a perceived increase of control. But in fact, and many times it's more like an elevator button that doesn't really close the door any faster than not pushing a button. So, so part of this is also from a user design, experience design perspective. They give some suggestions, such as a remediation process provided immediately after people perceive they have experienced algorithmic discrimination should be straightforward to execute, since stressors impede ability to complete tasks and because easy tasks reinstill a sense of control. So what they try to do is that they try to present an easy way to, to be able to report discrimination, even if it doesn't do anything. And then another thing is that they want to say, number 3 here, consider messages that relate to influencing someone's effective response to their appraisal of a situation or themselves, as opposed to directly alleviating the issue at hand. So if we can make users feel guilty about themselves or guilty about their response, then it may influence the way that they feel about the psychologically induced stress.
Yeah, let me just say something. Let me jump in and just flesh this out. Tell me if I'm correct here. we hear so much about these protected classes, classes that should be protected. So for instance, you can't say anything negative about the trans community. You can't say anything negative about the trans community or the gay community celebrating little boys dressing up and performing on stage for adults. The Amazing Desmond comes to mind. It's even getting to the point where you really can't criticize. There's a move anyway to legalize and support pedophilia, and that people are just born that way. Meanwhile, you want to talk about a non-protected class? Let's talk about a targeted class, whites. If you use the word nationalism and you happen to be Caucasian, they call you a white nationalist and they use it as a pejorative. So not only are many of us feeling discriminated against, we're feeling outright attacked on a daily basis. And it's A-okayed, it's mainstreamed, it's A-okayed by the mainstream Mockingbird horror media and Google.
Right. And what they're doing right now is that they're actually changing the definition of words so that words that used to be neutral are now moving towards hate speech. So a really great example of this is that Google now reports that the definition of nationalism is such as identification with one's own nation and support for its interests, especially to the exclusion or detriment of the interests of other nations. So what they've done right now is that they've added this negative definition onto nationalism.
Right.
And so if you look at the Webster's, it's going to go Webster's dictionary. If I go to the Webster's dictionary and I type in nationalism, this gives us a more classical definition, right? So this is what it was. So the definition is loyalty and devotion to a nation, especially a sense of national consciousness, exalting one nation above all others and placing primary emphasis on promotion of its culture and interests as opposed to those of other nations or supranational groups. So this is what the definition used to mean, and this doesn't comprise any sort of hate language in it. Because the new definition that Google is pushing includes hate, what that means is that that transmogrifies any sort of conversation about nationalism into one that is potentially bannable because it contains hate speech. And this is what they're doing to different words. So such as white nationalism should mean, the veneration of, white culture by those that that identify as white. But now it's going to transmogrify into a racist exclusionary group that is supremacist in its orientation. And
right.
this war on words has been happening for a very, very long time. But ever since Donald Trump has won the election, YouTube and Google are now pushing this as fast as they can, as in lockstep with the mainstream media.
That's right. It's a pro-globalist agenda. And as we talk about Orwellian speech or Orwellian moves to curb free speech, this is there's such thing now, according to Google and YouTube, as wrongthink, and they're pushing this Orwellian agenda towards globalism. So I think what you just described is they're pro-globalist, and anybody who's pro-sovereignty, pro-nationalist is anti-globalist. And the reason I think that Google and YouTube are pro-globalist is because we have a First Amendment, a U.S. Constitution, a Bill of Rights, and a Supreme Court that has ruled on multiple occasions there is no such thing as hate speech. So if they have to operate under the laws of this country, then their pro-globalist agenda and their pro-globalist algorithms have to change. But
right,
in a globalist world, though, with a one-world government, it's game over. And I think that's what they want. I mean, evidently, that's what their algorithms and their search language and their attack on speech, that's what it says to me that they want.
Right. And they're not being inclusive and they're not being diverse because they demonize, whites based upon their protected status, which is their race. And so when you listen to these people, talk about how inclusive they are and how diverse they are, what they're doing is that they're actually saying the opposite, because inclusion stops when it comes to whiteness. Diversity stops when it comes to whiteness. Those words are dog whistles for anti-white and legitimizing anti-white racism.
Right. All right, let's do this. I want to ask you about tortious interference. I want to ask you about monetization via Google and AdSense and on YouTube being used as a weapon. I want to ask you about that research you did about my channel versus a couple of others that we'll name by name. But before we do that, can you just briefly explain to people about Dr. Robert Epstein's research into apparently the millions of votes that went for Hillary in 2016 based on Google's algorithms, and what it means for 2020? I think his research said somewhere in the neighborhood of between, I don't know, what was it, 2 and 10 million votes went her way that otherwise wouldn't have, or maybe that was his prediction
Between
for 2020.
2.5 million and 10.5 million votes were moved over to Hillary by the use of Google's tricks for influencing online behavior.
Okay, let's just break that down because, for instance, because here's another thing we can tie into this is it's the Google autocomplete, which I now despise. I hate it. It's constantly completing things that are not what I intend to search for, and then it loads automatically.
Creepy.
Yeah, and so one of the examples here is Clinton body count. Okay, now that's gone away, but if you type in Trump body count, that'll come up right away. It'll autocomplete. Is that like how would a Google algorithm get 10 million people to go out and vote for her who otherwise wouldn't have? I don't get it.
Yeah, so the thing about the fake news mainstream media is that it loses its magic when it's confronted with facts and the truth. And truth is more powerful than lies, which is the reason why they have to censor the truth in order for the lies to take root in the human mind. And one of the problems that the Clinton election team found was that when people were searching for Clinton, it was auto-completing to the Clinton body count and uranium-1 and these criminal scandals that actually treasonous scandals that Clinton had engaged in. And so in order to support the candidate, someone somewhere inside Google or a team altered the results of Google's autocomplete to suppress the negative keywords associated with Hillary Clinton. And Google wrote in a blog post, I think it was 2016, that the autocomplete was represented by the aggregate of the user searches. So if you take every possible search for Clinton and you were to raise the search queries, let's say like you get like the top 5, those would be, the top 5 that would be inserted that matched your search query. The problem is that when they've stated that it actually represents actual search queries. The problem is that we can tell that they're lying. And the way that we can tell that they're lying is because there's another tool that can tell us what users are searching for.
Trends.
And it's called trends.google.com.
Right.
And so you can actually compare the number of people that are searching for Clinton body count versus the ones that are searching for Trump body count. And I actually did a Medium post showing this, discrimination. And what you see is that the number of people searching for the Clinton body count outnumbered those searching for the Trump body count 100 to 1. And so if so many more people are searching for the Clinton body count, why doesn't it show up at all?
Right.
And the reason is that there's meddling going on. And this is election meddling, and Google is acting as an unregistered lobbyist.
Yeah, I just typed in Hillary Clinton, and when it very slowly typed in Hillary space CLI, the autocomplete suggestions are Hillary Clinton a lesbian? That's a fair one. Hillary Clinton age, Hillary Clinton net worth, Hillary Clinton college. Nothing about uranium-1, the body count scandals, the private server in Chappaqua, the email scandal, nothing about any of it, Benghazi. So it's just such a stacked deck, and the emperor has no clothes, and people are starting to see that. It's my hope that the DOJ will rein in this out-of-control leftist company that does not resonate with Americans anymore. I mean, if you're a right-thinking person who cares about his country and you want actual search results, and if you've used Google for the last 10 years, everybody using it and YouTube must now recognize that something changed over the past year, drastically changed. I mean, I can see it in my numbers, but even if you're just a daily user of the service, you're not getting the results you're looking for anymore. So you're right, man. They're literally destroying their own platform.
And it's not just politics anymore. they're also doing cultural warrior terms. Like they're engaging in full-scale cultural warfare. And the way that you can see this is you can go to Google, you can type in men can, and see the autocompletes for what Google's telling you that other people are searching for. Do you want to try that, Sean?
Yeah, it's disturbing. It'll be like men can have babies and stuff like that. Let me just try it. Oh my God, I don't even want to. Men can. Oh, sure. Men can have periods. It's insanity.
Right?
It's
And you do the
literal.
same thing for women. Women, can women can fly, women can do it, women can vote, women can do
Yeah.
anything. Women can be drafted.
Yeah, women can fly, women candidates, women can do it, women can vote. It's just, and yeah, that's all true, but it's probably not what most, whatever. Here's the bottom line. This is social engineering. And one last shout out to our friend, Amazing Polly, who dug in a little further to those documents. And she came up with a term called reactance. Reactance occurs when a person feels that someone or something is taking away their choices or limiting the range of alternatives. Think Google search. Think of what YouTube has done. You're not being served up the videos you actually want to watch anymore. She says, like what? Reactance would occur when blacklisting of terms on YouTube happens, like making sure certain websites don't show up in a Google search, sgtreport.com, like removing word definitions, Covfefe, for example. I think she's absolutely right. And this is, I said it earlier, I think Google and YouTube are engaged in psychological warfare against the people. And any of us that have been searching for truth and have woken up and taken the red pill over the past decade can see it every single day when we use Google and YouTube.
And I want to talk about like the worst example that caused me to finally realize that I needed to bring this story to the American public. And that was when I caught Google deleting words out of its translation dictionary in order to make a Trump tweet sound crazy. And so this happened in May of 2017 when Trump came back from Saudi Arabia. He made a tweet that had some Arabic, that had an Arabic word in it. And the tweet was, despite the negative constant press, kafefe. Well, kafefe is an Arabic word meaning we will stand up. And I've heard that it's actually also an older term from the antediluvian era, which stands for we will stand up against those who are fallen, or something to that effect. And so Trump was obviously, in my opinion, signaling to the people that there was a force that was standing up against those that speak lies. And what happened was that the New York Times, well, what happened first is that people realized this message and started decoding it and started passing around this rumor online. And one of the evidences for this translation was the fact that Google translated the word to we will stand up. But the New York Times wrote an article saying, well, actually, the word is nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. And the reason why we know is because we found somebody at some credentialed university that says it doesn't mean anything. And which is absolutely ridiculous. I've talked to a lot of people that know Arabic and also know Hebrew and say that that there's a similar word in Hebrew and that it goes back a long ways. Well, Google decided to delete this word, kafefe, and the reasoning for their deletion was that they actually cited the New York Times's article as the reason that this word should be, turned into nonsense. And so as part of my disclosure, I show the process for, the design document to get rid of kafefe, and then the implementation notes that the operators are using to get rid of this word. And one of the most surprising things about it is after I did this release, Polly pointed out that the name of the group that was engaging in censorship was called the Derrida team. Now, why is this significant? Because Jacques Derrida, the philosopher from Europe, advocated for not only cultural Marxism, but for the destruction of Western culture through the use of changing definitions of words. So how ironic that the team that was responsible for censorship at Google named themselves after the philosopher responsible for advocating the destruction of Western language Western culture through its language.
That is fascinating. Polly, amazing Polly, put that together?
That, or it was Tiffany Fitz Henry.
Absolute shout out to Tiffany then, because that is, see, they love to tell us what they're doing. I mean, they love their symbology. They love stealing language. They love using words. Jacques Derrida was an Algerian-born French-Jewish philosopher best known for developing a form of semiotic analysis known as deconstruction. Oh my God. Yeah, it's all right. It's all right in the wide open. They're telling us exactly what they're doing. And they're using their algorithms as weapons. And they're using monetization via Google and AdSense on YouTube as a weapon. And for anybody who has a website and uses Google AdSense, I don't know how many of you do, but I do. And I got the email about, well, probably back around January, February, March, saying, your website is no longer compliance with Google AdSense, so good luck to you. So they're using monetization as a weapon. If you don't fall into lockstep with their leftist, Marxist, globalist viewpoint, you're not going to make any money. Meanwhile, CNN pays Anderson Cooper $12 million a year to lie. That's what we're up against, brother.
Yeah, and you got Paul Krugman pushing anti-white racism, and he's accepted in every sort of speakers conference because he's considered to be a credible source of information, despite the fact that most everything he says actually has negative information value. In other words, whatever Paul Krugman says, if you take the opposite position, then that's going to be highly predictive of what actually happens. And that it's been that way for 3 years. And despite how much racism and how much he's wrong about the subject of economics, this guy gets to go in past the gatekeepers. And people like you, Sean, are blocked because they don't like the words that you're saying, especially because they are true.
All right, this is a perfect segue over to the final part of our discussion. And I want to thank you personally for taking the time. Like I said, we started the interview. We're going to start at 12:30. I had told you this idea that I wish I'd thought of a day or two ago about taking a look at my channel versus a couple of other specific channels, which we'll mention here in a second, on Social Blade. And you said, give me an hour. I'll go do that now. You're such a good guy. Before we do that, last question before the last question. Tortious interference. Tortious interference is defined, and it's illegal. It's defined as when one party interferes in the business of two other parties, deliberately to harm the business between the two other parties. So I've made the argument for a long time that Google and YouTube are in violation of the law because when the Google ad apocalypse happened about 1.5 years or 2 ago, again, I had at that time my relationship with Hadass because I had over 100,000 subs and I could talk to Hadass via email. And then she was kind enough, we would set up chats via phone, Google Chat, whatever. I'd actually speak with her. And she said, what we're telling our ad partners to do is don't rely on us for ads. This is during the ad apocalypse. She said, we're encouraging y'all to go out and build your own ad relationships. Go and develop relationships. It might be a shoe store in your neighborhood. It might be the Patriot flashlight. It might be whatever. Go build those relationships. And then you advertise and you make the revenue when you advertise for those relationships. Don't count on us. So I went and did that. I built some third-party relationships outside of Google. But then on January 22nd, YouTube announced they were going to change their algorithms to start filtering out what they deem to be misinformation, which in my view is truth, thereby hurting my circulation of my videos. My view counts have plummeted. My average view count versus 2019 versus 2018 is very clearly lower. I was adding 25 to 35,000 subscribers throughout 2018. My monthly additions of subscribers has fallen to around 2,000 per month now. And I believe that's tortious interference because now I'm not reaching as many of my subscribers. I have 560,000 subscribers now, but my average video is now getting between 50 and maybe 90,000 views. So to me, that's tortious interference. Do you have any thoughts? I know you're not an attorney, but your thoughts on that in monetization as a weapon?
Right. Well, the thing is that, you know, in my opinion, if YouTube is being a platform, then they're going to let the data determine what gets viewed and what doesn't. The reason why you became really popular, Sean, is because people engaged with your content. They clicked on your content, they played the video, they played it to completion, and all of this stuff is measured. And what the algorithms were looking for was, and still do to some extent, they were looking for these engagement metrics. And because of your engagement metrics were so good, you got a lot of recommendations, especially next to content that was similar to the content that you provide. Well, what's been happening now is that YouTube is now intervening. They still have this system of recommendation, but right now it's not delivering the political agenda that they are favoring. And so what they're doing now is that they're trying to redirect the recommendation engine to give videos that are more authoritative. And so what I noticed as an employee who watches YouTube all the time, I noticed that even when I clicked on your video or I clicked on similar videos, they wouldn't go to you. What they would try to do is they would redirect me to Fox News and CNN and MSNBC. They were constantly redirecting me so that I would land on these authoritative news sources. And then once I landed on those authoritative news sources, I would stay on those authoritative news sources. And this is a really big problem. And so, it kicked in, around January of this year. And what I've seen through Social Blade is that everyone's traffic has just, been hurt in some capacity. Your monthly subs took one of the largest dives I've ever seen. At the height, at October 2018, you were getting 40,000 subs per month. And now in May, you just had 2.1. So 40,000 to 2.1. I mean, that's a 95% cutoff of the number of people that were able to find your content and subscribe to it.
Right. Of new people. See, there's the key. It's the number of new people. Not only are they limiting my videos from reaching my existing 560,000 subscribers, no new people are finding this content, right? Down 95%.
That's right. And what's happening is that your monthly views are degrading, but they're still their low is about half of what they were. So you're in May you had a monthly view count of 1.31 million, but at the max you had 5.82. So nearly 2x. So you've fallen by half of your monthly views. Now, what's happening is that you still have your hardcore audience, and they're still manually going, to your website and not relying on the recommendation algorithm anymore. But nobody the people that haven't found you yet, they're not getting recommended. They're not getting a recommendation to your website. And so that's the reason why your monthly subs have fallen through the floor, because people that are already your existing subscriber aren't going to be subscribing again. They can't. They're already subscribed. And
Right.
So what's happening is that YouTube is trying to slam the door shut so that your channel can't grow.
Yeah, it not only can it grow, it'll begin to atrophy over time, right? Because people move or their tastes change, and we're seeing a lot of formerly popular alternative news channels on YouTube report losing subs every single month now. So it's getting so bad that YouTube is slamming the door shut on this alternative news media that they deem to be misinformation or quote unquote fake news. They're slamming the door shut to the extent that now channels are beginning to atrophy and lose subs month over month. So it really is targeted. And the point I wanted to make as I asked you to take a look at Social Blade is I want to name two channels that I believe are whitelisted. There's many more examples. I could have mentioned Black Conservative Patriot and others. Good guy. I promoted his channel early on. But Tim Pool and another YouTube channel, a newcomer to the scene called Black Pill. Now, not Black Pilled, not Devin Stack's channel, Black Pill. And as I looked, this came on my radar about 2 months ago, month and a half ago. Black Pill started showing up in my recommended column. And as I looked at his channel, I thought, how peculiar. At that point, he had 25,000 subscribers. He now has, I'm not exactly sure what the count is, here it is, 68,000 subscribers. He's more than doubled, he's almost tripled his channel in the past 6 weeks. And what I found interesting about this particular channel as I looked into it is that 3 months ago, his wife or girlfriend was running the channel, and it was all trucking, switching lanes in my new Paseo. Trucking saved my life from the streets. 4,000 views, 4,000 views, 3,000 views. Ride along with me. I guess she's a trucker. Good for her. But when her boyfriend or husband, this nice black guy, took over, he started to do videos called, oh, let's see, where's a big one here? Here's a big one. Watch, Minnesota lawmakers just ordered, and it's about Ilhan Omar, 522,000 views. Angry Ocasio-Cortez supporter confronts her, 615,000 views. Ocasio-Cortez supporter confronts Candace Owens, 668,000 views. You can't explain that kind of view count with those innocuous titles and not very custom thumbnails. You can't explain that kind of view count with 25,000 subscribers at the time. So I wanted your thoughts on that, because to me, it's YouTube trying to give itself some plausible deniability by saying, oh no, we promote all sorts of channels from, black conservatives.
Right. So what you see right here is, what I see right here is the views for the last 30 days. Oh man, they're not even trying to hide it. Okay, you ready for this?
Yeah.
The views for the last 30 days has increased on this Black Pill channel by 22,350%.
Yeah, see, I was going to do a video about this, but I wanted to talk to you about it first, because I don't want people to think this is sour grapes for me. I just know, because the numbers tell the story, what they've done to my channel and others in the space, True Stream Media, Black Pigeon Speaks, et cetera, et cetera. But then there's these examples.
Yeah, and it happens, his channel goes up just as everyone else's spikes down. So it is clear that there's an algorithmic change that was introduced around July 19th, either July 19th or he just, is that the time that he changed the channel to be about himself rather than his wife?
I think so, because look what happens here. Dancer gives advice on how dangerous night, whatever, 2 months ago, 4.1 thousand views. The next month, about a month later, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez gets embarrassed, gets 24,000 views. The very next video, Smart Congressman gets angry and destroys, 136,000 views. The very next video, Brave Congressman gets up and rips Ocasio-Cortez, 1.4 million views. As an aside, I have precious few videos in the history of my channel that have 1.4 million views, probably less than 10.
Yeah, it's something about the recommendation engine is trying to redirect people to this small left-wing signal and boost it up and give him the view count so that he can expand his channel. Meanwhile,
And I don't know that he's left-wing at all. He keeps going after Ocasio-Cortez, and it's all about but there's something going. Yeah, it's not all left-wing stuff. I think it's right-wing stuff. I think in my opinion, it's YouTube. Couple of things. It's YouTube providing themselves some plausible deniability, maybe, but it's also driving traffic to this little, unknown channel and away from the truth stream medias and the iconoclasts and the Black Pigeon Speaks and you pick your flavor of those of us who have been at this for far longer than this channel has for the last 3 months.
Right.
Again, diverting traffic from truth sources and off to some little offshoot where they want people to go.
Right. And for all we know, like, this is one of the patterns that I've seen the establishment play, is that they get a guy, or a person, they inject them into the mainstream media narrative, and they represent a conservative voice, and they definitely play the narrative for a while. And then what happens is that over time they transition to a leftist talking point. And what they're constantly trying to do is they're trying to redirect people to these influencers who then, these controlled influencers who then change their message and lead people into a left-wing progressive ideology. Yeah. And so this has every sort of like indication that's what could happen. I'm not asserting that it is. This is just my opinion from other patterns that I've seen.
Yeah.
But there's been a history of funneling people to these controlled opposition.
Yeah, and the other reason that they may be funneling so much view count, you said it went up 22,000%. That's interesting. I should have done the video before I talked to you, because we're right over the target here. What this channel does is it literally, I don't watch it much. I watched a few of these videos when I was early on investigating. They'll just take a Fox News clip. They'll just take a clip and play it in its entirety. And it's an interesting conservative viewpoint. And it's not really misdirecting people in terms of the content, but they're literally just taking a clip from Fox News or wherever they find it and re-uploading it and then getting this kind of view count, which to me is absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. Number one. Number two, I guess it's providing a little bit of the impetus that YouTube wants for people to then go to Fox News, right? As opposed to any of these alternative news sources.
Right, it's repeating the pattern that's being displayed by Fox News, which is part of the Overton window now of acceptable political discourse.
Right.
And so, it's people that repeat that seem to be in favor. And it's really simple. If you're within the Overton window, then you're going to get promoted. But if you're outside of that, then they're going to label you and slander you as fringe, and try to squeeze the people discovering you, and also the amount of money that you're making per month. And this is the multi-touch. It's not just one way that they're trying to demonetize and weaken the influencer network. They're doing it on every single channel at the same time to overwhelm you.
Yeah. All right. The other channel I asked you to look into was Tim Pool. And I got nothing personally against Tim Pool. I just get angry about the absolute unfair, unlevel playing field. Tim Pool is a obviously whitelisted channel. His videos come up daily for me, constantly recommended. Here's an example. Look at this. One day ago, let's just go 2 days ago. This is the last 3 videos. 2 days ago, he posted a video. It now has 391,000 views. 1 day ago, he posted a video. It has 401,000 views. His latest video posted 23 hours ago, titled Dave Chappelle Gets 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, is at 480,000 views. Now, explain that to me, because Tim Pool, here's the smart thing he did. He went on Joe Rogan and he confronted Jack at Twitter, Jack Dorsey, about their unlevel playing field and about how they're targeting conservatives. And Tim Pool is, in my view, way more liberal than conservative. But nonetheless, he does speak some truth, but his channel is absolutely whitelisted. And if you go to Social Blade, like I asked you to do, let's describe what kind of revenue he's making via YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, he's making significant inroads. He's making significant revenue. I do like him. He's a prolific content creator. But if you look at his Social Blade score, instead of getting hit like everyone else's, he's just burned right through it. And he continues to, have a very strong, not only monthly view, but he's also having a very strong monthly sub number.
Right.
And so
I think he's doubled his subs this year, probably more than doubled his subscriber count this year.
Yeah.
I think he's around 300,000 at the beginning of the year. He's now at 617,000.
Yeah. And so clearly, there's something going on where he's been able to succeed where others have been able to have seen their voices censored. And, I like Tim. I think a lot of his videos are kind of like clickbaity a little bit, that he kind of seems to talk about, like, in my opinion, a lot of unimportant things, but he kind of gets into that, cultural division stuff. And he doesn't really call out like the real problems in society, like the blackmail operations that have been used to influence politicians over the last few decades. And when people start hinting towards that sort of stuff, then they get sort of pushed out as, fringe content creators, even though the things that they're saying is factually accurate.
All righty. Well, again, nothing against Tim Pool. I just think those of us, what was that term that Amazing Polly had? Was it reactants? I forget. But
isn't it funny how they've made reactants a bad word, like a reactionary or a neo-reactionary? Basically, someone who reacts to the changing of society is now considered an extremist because they dare to react to the society being changed and the fact that they're powerless to express their vote in order to change it. And it's just a really sort of nasty war on words that they're doing in order to change society. And we've been warned about this from authors like George Orwell in his book 1984, that the primary way that the totalitarian empire would slip in would be through the changing of the definition of words. And when I cross-reference that with the revolutions in Russia and the Cultural Revolution in China, what I see is that it's preceded by a progressively increasing and complex set of political correctness. And once political correctness sets in, then totalitarianism can also slip in behind it. And right now, what makes me very happy is to see that political correctness is being smashed by President Trump. He is the anti-political correctness president, and because of that, the new world order setting into the United States has been undone by several decades at least. And the fact that we can speak truth and that's acceptable, and that the words of slander are no longer having their effect, indicates to me that we're entering into a new type of society, one that is, based on freedom, and one that's based on free expression. And hopefully we get back a free market that is the true tried and true way of prosperity in America.
Amen. That's a fantastic way to round out this conversation. Zach, will you do me a favor before we part ways? Can you turn your video back on? Do you still have your gloves, your Zach Ease gloves?
Uh-huh.
Guys, for those of you who are cyclists and you want to support Zach, the website is zachees.com. That's ZACKEES.com. Show them these cool gloves, man.
So it comes in a box like this. We ship it from your house in the United States. And they give you turn signals on your hands. And so imagine that you're signaling right. And then, boom, there you go. You got a turn signal, going left. They're activated with these contact parts between the finger and thumb. So they just come on like that. They've got leather soles. You can throw these gloves with the electronics right into the wash. The electronics are waterproof. And they come with a 1-year guarantee. So they're going to last as long as you can. And the nice leather gloves are great. I've taken a spill and I've landed on them, and my hands were just fine, and they've got really great padding. And the leather on them means that you have a really nice grip on the handlebars without being over grippy. So they're pretty much a premium cycling glove with this really cool signaling feature on them. And if your viewers or your viewers' friends are looking for the best cycling glove, like, this makes a really great gift for Christmas and a birthday or any special occasion.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And that's your product, huh? You designed that?
Yeah, I designed it. So
yeah, that's amazing. Well, it's a great way to support you then. I mean, you put it all on the line with Google, and they showed you the door. And so we'll have your back by trying to support you here, and obviously in other ways in the future. So we'll have to stay in touch.
Right. And if users want to help, keep me alive, because whistleblowers have typically a very short lifespan, they should help get eyes on me by going to my Twitter account, twitter.com/perpetualmaniac. And if they follow my account, Perpetual Maniac, then they'll be able to see the things I'm doing to expose Google, and they can follow along, and they can be part of the pushback against Google's totalitarian censorship. So please, everyone, follow me on Twitter @Perpetual Maniac.
Fantastic. Hey, last thing. You're a super creative guy. The gloves are amazing. The artwork behind you, did you design that? Do you want to just explain for the audience?
Yeah, so this was designed by an artist by the name of Cryptic, and I took his art and I projected it onto the doors here, and then just did fill in on the art.
Okay, is that like a Buddhist thing, or do you know what the
it's like a Buddhist thing, and I just put it because it looks cool and it gives like a good ambience to my living room. I also have this other one right over here. I don't even know who the artist is. I'd like to figure out who the artist is one day, but
yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm a Christian, but I admire all sorts of different artwork and religious themes. So I wanted to ask you about that. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd like it.
All right, Zach, thank you for all you do. Thanks for your courage and your bravery to tell the truth. I mean, you really put it all on the line. I don't know what more any of us can do than what you did, and I really appreciate it. So thanks for all you do, man.
Thank you very much, Sean. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure's mine. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And for Real News 24/7, circumvent Google, use Start Page. That's Zach's idea. I think it's a good one. Use Start Page and go to sgtreport.com on a daily basis, where you'll find real news, the antidote to corporate, mockingbird, mainstream horror media lies 24/7. sgtreport.com. You can also find us at thephaser.com and thelibertymill.com. Guys, thank you so much for listening, liking, and sharing this interview within your sphere of influence. We very much appreciate it. And a special thank you to my patrons who are keeping us in the game. God bless you all.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Zach. Bye-bye.
At the end of the trial, which is a good story in and of itself, the FDA asked the court, and the court complied and banned my book. So I've lived for the last 22 years with a felony attached to my name, which prevents a lot of things. It caused a great amount of hardship.